Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Woung here, and welcome back to another video. Today, I'm going to teach you guys how to build hyper-targeted B2B outreach lists so you get your product or service in front of the right people. So, with that being said, let's just get right into it. So, before diving into the specifics of your outreach, like your messaging or call to action, it's crucial to ensure that you are reaching the right people. So here is going to be a straightforward guide on how to create highly targeted B2B outreach lists. So we have two main parts we're going to go over. The first one is we're going to understand list building and why it's so important. The effectiveness of your outreach campaign hinges on how relevant and targeted your list is. Reaching the right people increases the likelihood of engagement in conversation. And pretty much it involves list building, which means identifying potential companies that are likely to benefit from your offer and gathering essential information about them. Now, the reason why this is so important is because I'm sure you guys have gotten emails like, hey, how are you, blah, blah, blah. Boring, basic, nothing relevant to me. Now, don't get confused with hyper-targeted lead lists like, hey, John, I saw you went to Princeton University, because they just don't care. So now if you have a different offer like, hey, I saw you guys were using Clutch, and instead of paying Clutch for your clicks on your website, would you be more interested in a pay per qualified call basis? That's just something right off the dome. We're going to dive into more examples in a bit, but that's essentially what we're talking about. Really diving in to make our email seem personalized, so where you guys don't look like you're just straight up a cold email. So the more or the less cold an email looks is the better it is. So we do have 5 steps that we take to build our lead list. We're going to go through every single one of them individually. And first one is finding the relevant companies itself. So we start by finding companies that fit our ideal customer profile. That could involve looking at the industry, the company size, location, and we really are going to get deep into it. After we find who we want to target, we're going to enrich that company data to make sure that they are legit, they're still here, and it provides us some insight into their company and see what type of activities are going on. From that point on, we identify these decision makers. So for each company, we identify who the decision makers are. These are the people who have authority to make purchasing decisions that relate to your product or service. So we don't want to be emailing the store clerk or the Foot Locker referee worker. You know what I mean? We want to make sure we're targeting the CEO, COO, CMO, CFO, all those type of positions, and make sure that who we're targeting actually has a power of what they can say in the business. Now, after we identify them, we're going to validate them to make sure that they are still at the company and that they are real people. So we do that through a verification tool or platform that ensures the accuracy of the data, because we don't want to be cold emailing Steve Jobs. That doesn't make sense. We want to be emailing Tim Cook. Then after that last step, we do a deep validation. So we go a step further by validating not just the contact details, but also understanding their specific needs and challenges. This could involve looking at recent company news, their posts on professional network, and other public communications to tailor to your outreach. Now, for our generation, or the time that we're currently in, is that internet and AI have evolved so much. So if you really get into it, you can really dive deep and make sure that you stand out so it doesn't even look like we're just shooting in the dark, right? We have a strategic plan. You guys know what you're doing and give you the credibility that you deserve. Now, before we dive into specifics, it's crucial to establish what really counts in the outreach process. Opinions vary greatly on what the most critical aspect of effective outreach may be. Some argue that it's the magic that lies in copywriting. Others prioritize a compelling call to action. Many emphasize the value of an offer, and some focus on the optimal timing of outreach. Yet, all these elements are secondary compared to the foundational step of building a targeted lead list. I'm going to tell you guys why. So imagine crafting the world's most engaging video game advertisement. Revolutionary. Maybe Minecraft too. But your audience consists solely of people who have no interest in gaming. Your effort, regardless of its brilliance, would not resonate. No matter what, it will not resonate. Or picture crafting an irresistible offer for a top-tier steakhouse meal, like where I work. But you're presenting it to a group of vegetarians. They're just not going to have any interest because you know why? There's no product market fit. Pretty much meaning you don't want to offer a potential prospect or potential customer prospect something they don't care about, because that's just bad news all around. Another example, you could be developing a groundbreaking strategy to revolutionize how retail stores manage inventory, making it faster, cheaper, and more efficient. But if you're explaining this to someone who has no decision-making power in the retail operation, such as the frontline store clerk, your efforts will be overlooked. And that's why the point is, before refining your messaging or honing your sales pitch, it's imperative to ensure that your lead list building is accurately targeted. This foundational step ensures that your well-crafted messages and offers reach the right people who are capable of and interested in responding to them. I will stand by this forever, that having the right offer to the right person at the right time is all that it takes to have a successful campaign or outreach. Now, you could have best offer, I can increase your revenue by 100,000 to let's say a clothing brand company through newspaper ads. It's a good offer. Could be your ideal ICP, but it's at the wrong time. Newspapers were a thing of the past. So as long as those three things line up, which you very much have most control of, you can really go very far. Now, what exactly does lead list or list building involve? You might be wondering this question. While it sounds straightforward, literally building a list, spreadsheet, it's a little bit more complex than that. List building involves a series of strategic actions, which these are the 5 we're going to talk about, between identifying the relevant companies, to enriching that data, to locating the decision makers, validating the decision makers, and a deep validation to make sure that we have the best possible outreach possible. Now, first up is going to be identifying the relevant companies. This is the first and often most challenging step in the lead list building process. The complexity arises because there's no one-size-fits-all method. Instead, there's multiple tools and strategies that are necessary depending on the target sector. Now, this is just a general list of some of the tools on the market, where I'm going to release another video later on going more in depth and breaking each one of these down. First one is Apollo, which is our general section. This is kind of where we get most of our decision makers from, but we use that to finally enrich it. Now, to get the first step of the leads, we go to other places. There's Google My Business, which is for local. D7 Lead Finder is also local. There's also Store Leads and Brand Nav, which is e-commerce. Built With, which is find out, what technologies they're using if they're running Facebook ads. Wapalyzer, G2, software as service companies, Crunchbase, and plenty of more. Now, the thing is, though, that many of these platforms aren't straightforward when it comes to scraping information directly. I can't just, go on Apollo, grab a list, and click download for free and have a nice, merry, fun day. A little bit harder than that. But on top of that is using Apollo on a large scale can become extremely expensive. Leads cost money. But if you have a public scraper like Export Apollo, it can make it significantly cheaper for the same leads. We're going to go over that when we enrich it. But another example, for the Google My Business, you're generally going to need a public scraping tool, or you could develop your own custom solution. Now, there is this one on the market. It is called Instant Data Scraper. I could pull this up here for you guys. All right, so now that we got this kind of loaded up, you could do try another table until you kind of have the data that you want. This isn't the best, but it's for free. It gets the job done sometimes. You have company names here. If you're lucky enough, if you do cold calling, numbers right here, as well as website links. So you can just export that to CSV here. And other data if it applies. Now, there's also a crawling method. So if you want to, let's say it's a different website and it kind of has a next button at the bottom, you could click locate next button and select it, and it will keep crawling the page and going down and adding more data to your table. So extracting data from G2 and Crunchbase can also be challenging because some of these softwares like Agency Vista also or Clutch are basically like websites that have companies for other business owners to get in contact with, not so much for like scraping lead purposes. So we have to find our way around. Like, for example, you might need to employ a specialized data scraper. Developers can make them. There's also some online, depending what website you're trying to go from. There's many different options. You could use Amplify. People make custom agents there. Those are kind of like the custom tools, they call it, that can help scrape data. And this complexity is a part of the challenge of outreach. It's not as straightforward as people think, like just copy and pasting a list. Often it requires creating an effective outreach list that has the integration of multiple tools, not just relying on a single source to assemble high quality leads. So let's take this for example. One of my buddies owns a power washing business. For example, let's say you want to target power washing business owners that are already running Facebook ads. Let's go on Apollo. What filter would we use? You can't. That's the hard part. So you have to be extremely creative, especially if you own an agency. Creativity will take you a very long way. Building an effective outreach list often requires integration of several tools. For instance, in this scenario, we would target power washing businesses who run Facebook ads. So we would have a little bit of a multi-step process. So we'll go on Google My Business like we just showed you to scrape the relevant local services like power washing or power washers near me, and filtering for the company websites like I showed you on the public scraper. Now you would import this data into built with, as I mentioned up here, and filter for technologies like Facebook pixels. Now, it's not definitive, but it's an extremely high chance that they're actively running Facebook ads. Then you can enrich the data with a tool to pull social media profiles, focusing on Facebook to reach decision makers directly. Because most power washings, HVACs, that's all like pretty much owner centered, let's say. If I'm going to pull up like not an agency. Yeah, if I pull up like an agency, it's not going to be the owner's phone number. Probably going to be a business line. So you could run a targeted Facebook DM campaign, like a messenger, and target those pages. Like, just quick example. Hey, I'm also based in town name, and notice you're running Facebook ads. It is a small world, but I also run a marketing company too. Would you mind if I shared some tips to enhance your ads? Now, this approach is highly tailored based on both location and technology use. Would likely be much more effective than a standard generic message like, hey, would you be interested in enhancing your Facebook ads with this free document? It's a nice touch, and little details really go a long way, especially in business, that makes you stand out, seem that you're competent, you know what you're doing, and hyper-personalize it. Now, if you guys want to learn how to craft an offer like the one above that I just quickly typed out, check out my other video, how to create winning offers that sell. There will be a link in the document as well, and a link in the description, whatever is easiest for you. Then we're going to move on to step 2, enriching the company data. So I'm going to share a unique method for enriching website data that I learned from a video that surprisingly very few people use. It is quite common for companies to include links to their social media profiles in the footer of their website. I'm sure you could almost think of tons of businesses. If you're a business owner, you want to have your social media in your footer, header, whatever it may be. So just imagine having a tool that could scan a list of websites, picking out the links that begin with facebook.com, instagram.com, twitter.com. This is my friend's power washing I was telling you about. Social media is right here. And then compile all this information into a Google spreadsheet. Such a tool would provide an incredible resource for enriching data without the reliance on a third-party API or facing any rate limit that would cost you a fortune depending on the size of your list. And especially for if you do cold outbound through direct messaging, this could be unlimited leads, which is pretty incredible. Now, it is a little bit trickier with cold emailing, but the potential is still there. And as I mentioned before, if you really get creative, you can do crazy stuff and you're not afraid to take the risk. You can do wild things. You just have to put your mind to it. Now, there's no specifically public developed software to perform this function. It's entirely possible for you to find someone on platforms like Fiverr or Upwork who have developed a similar tool for you. I have a friend who has a tool just like this. So you could go ahead and try that out. Third step, we are going to identify the decision makers. This is a crucial step, especially if you're planning to send cold emails, because as you said before, don't want to send to Joe Schmo of Walmart, stalking employee. Definitely not the Foot Locker referee. While direct messaging DMs often target companies generally, which is like company account, so it just makes sense, cold emails require a different specific influential individual within those companies, because you want to make sure that, again, you're targeting the people who actually can tell you yes to your decision. Now, here's how we can identify some decision makers from a list of websites. Now, I told you before, Apollo.com, bread and butter. This is our go-to platform for data enrichment and is highly regarded for cold outreach. It is particularly useful because of the availability of third-party scrapers, which makes it a cost-effective option, which I'm going to go down a little bit below. The new one that I'm really starting to like, Clay.com. This is another excellent tool I recommend. While it's effective, the continued availability of cheaper Apollo scrapers makes Apollo a little bit more appealing for now. Clay's a little bit harder to scrape, to be honest, but it's not impossible. Now, let me tell you guys exactly what I was talking about before. The cost consideration. So, using Apollo directly can be very expensive. For example, getting 25,000 unverified leads could cost you about $1,000. So if you use a third-party scraper, that could significantly reduce cost to about $75 for the same number of leads. That's insane. Here's a little example. Export credits for Apollo, 25,000 is $1,000. Where you could go on a website like Export Apollo right here, right? Our pricing, 25,000 contacts, $75. So you could get the exact same leads for not even a tenth of the price, less than a tenth of the price. So that is an available option. There's other platforms as well. That's just one I'm using in this example. So if you often scrape leads, it is also entirely possible for you to develop your own scraper. I would not recommend this to anybody who's kind of starting out or getting into this because it is a little bit unnecessary. Now, once you have a bigger company, you have like 10 clients, you're doing pretty good for yourself, then you can start to look into hiring a developer to develop that custom scraper for you. But in the meantime, in most cases, using an existing service like Export Apollo is advisable. Now, how we use Apollo to get the decision-making data is pretty simple. Apollo has a very useful feature that you can upload a list of company websites. So let's say you're scraping from store leads, as I mentioned above, e-commerce businesses. You could get the website off of there. Then you punch that website into Apollo, and boom, you're going to have a chance at decision makers. So it matches these websites with its database to reveal the employees and the key decision makers in the company by their position. So you just simply configure your search with parameters like, the list of website, employee counts, keywords, and however you want to slice and dice it. And you integrate your query into Export Apollo, then begin the process. So I'll show you guys a little bit of an example here. If you head over to search, companies, and company right here, there's a little button here that says include/exclude a list of companies. Include a list of companies. So you could type whatever you want in here, like for example, https, :// google.com. Let's say you also have amazon.com and such. Save and search. You have 2 companies. Go for your list of people. 544,000 people. Now, obviously, you're not going to be messaging the advisor or talent acquisition, but you could really dive deep into this. Like, even if you head to job titles, management level, owner, founder, C-suite, that's just the basic 3. 2,000 people. I know it's Amazon and Google, but you have 2,000 people you could get into contact with who are decision makers. So that moves on to number 4, is where we're going to validate these decision makers. So once we get their information from Apollo, we're going to see if they are legitimate. So diving into the process of validating decision makers is crucial for maintaining low bounce rates that will hurt your high bounce rates will hurt your deliverability, but maintaining a low one and ensuring that you have a high deliverability rate is just okay. We'll achieve this through the use of an email verification tool. You do not want to send to people who do not care about your offer or just simply do not exist. So when you are validating decision makers, there's 3 categories that your emails will be put in. Valid emails. This is good. We're going to throw them into our database. They're existing and deliverable. There's also risky emails. These may be catch-all emails or potentially invalid. I'll explain about this a little bit more, and I also have another video going over a waterfall enrichment progress. This is how you could almost double your lead list and make sure that every lead that you are getting is good. Then last but not least, there's invalid emails. These just do not exist and should be avoided to prevent bounces. Throw that into the do not send pile. So focusing on valid emails, when you verify a list of emails, typically 40 to 60% of them turn out to be valid. So if I have a 1,000-person lead list and I throw it into the million verifier, then I would expect 400 to 600 to come back good. Now, email verification tools function by sending the SMTP request to check if the emails will bounce or not. And then the responses from those servers will help categorize the emails. So this is just software that I use called Million Verifier. They go through and send over those SMTP verifications and make sure that your that your email is legit. Valid emails prompt a positive response from the server. Risky emails have an ambiguous response, making it hard to determine if they're just a catch-all or simply invalid. And invalid just do not have any response from the server. Now, what is catch-all, you may be thinking? A catch-all email setting on a domain ensures that all emails sent to the incorrect or non-existent email addresses at that domain are redirected to a single email address. For example, if you send an email to joemama@agency.com and it doesn't exist, but the domain has a catch-all enabled, it might be redirected to alex@agency.com. While catch-all emails are technically deliverable, they pose challenges in distinguishing from truly valid emails due to their cost implications in the verification process. So when you go through these SMTP verification checks, it is verifying that your email is legit. So if it's a catch-all, it has that chance. It's kind of trying to make sure that it actually is legit rather than a fake. For example, for our domain at dulcemedia.com, I just recently set up, finally, a catch-all email. So pretty much now, my only valid email addresses are info@dulcemedia.com and alexander@dulcemedia.com. And if you email anthony@dulcemedia.com, now there's no account that exists, but I will receive the email on info@dulcemedia.com because it simply is rerouting those non-existent emails over to the main inbox. So the steps we will take is retrieving our list through a scraper like Apollo. Then you run your list through an email verifier to isolate the valid emails and decide if you want to further refine the verification process to differentiate between truly valid emails and catch-all. And I'm going to go through in just a moment on how you're going to decide if it's going to be worth it to take the extra step or not. So, in the deep verification step, this is where we're going to explore how to focus and differentiate between catch-alls and invalid email addresses. What is deep validation? Have I been saying verification? Deep validation. Deep validation refers to the process of further analyzing risky email addresses to separate catch-alls from truly invalid ones. The task is crucial for ensuring the cleanliness of your email list and maintaining high deliverability rates, right? We do not want any bounced emails. So, behind the scenes, if you send an email to a non-existent address on platforms like Gmail, you typically receive a bounce back notification indicating your email cannot be delivered. Now, you guys may know the immediate feedback is okay on a personal level. That's no biggie. But in a business context, consistently high bounce rates will alert your email provider and negatively impact your deliverability. And when you send cold emails for your agency, we want to make sure that you have the best deliverability possible. So using these catch-all verifiers, we tackle this issue by sending test emails to the risky addresses and then monitor them to see which ones bounce back in a period of 48 to 72 hours. The ones that do not bounce are marked as valid. These tools operate from dedicated servers designed specifically for this purpose. At Dulce Media, we use Scrubby. Now, they're a little bit expensive, especially when you do it in bulk, but I don't think they're that crazy, but if you're trying to validate them to see if they're catch-all and where it's worth it, which we're going to talk about right here, then it could make a lot of sense where you could even double your lead lists to where you have a lot more contacts that you never would have had if you would have just simply thrown them out. So, how do you decide if you're going to just do a regular or deep verification? The choice between the standard verification and the deep verification largely depends on your total addressable market, which is your TAM. Now, if you do not know what TAM means, your total addressable market, this is the amount of people in your specific industry/market. So, for example, if I'm sending leads to large industries like software as service companies or e-commerce with millions of potential leads, then a standard SMTP check will do just fine, offering a vast pool of leads without spending the extra cost because there's just so many leads. Once you start to get more defined for like a niche market like US boutique investment firms with only 500 to 200 employees who are also running LinkedIn ads, your total addressable market is going to be way smaller. I would probably guess under 10,000 companies. So that's where your deep verifications can become a little bit more practical, saying that if you focus on a specific, highly specific group, employing deep validation can help ensure they are only connecting with the most relevant and actionable contacts. This method involves a higher initial investment, but can yield a better ROI by significantly enhancing lead quality. So this makes sure that you're getting everybody out of that TAM, depending on your client, or let's say you're running these for yourself. It can turn out pretty good for yourself by having a better ROI. Even though you're spending a little bit more, you're getting a little bit more back. Now, with all that being said, we did go a lot over deliverability and how to build hyper-targeted lead lists. Now, we could handle your cold emails for you where you only pay for results. So, there's much more than just putting together an email. There's crafting the right message, testing different approaches, creating and positioning offers, effective call to actions, understanding your audience's readiness to engage, building and segmenting lead lists, as well as managing your personal brand beyond the first email. So by working on a pay-per-qualified call basis, we choose to partner with companies who we believe are confident that we can deliver results for, as well as taking advantage of this opportunity, worst case scenario, you gain a little bit invaluable outreach insight. Best case, we drive a significant increase in your meetings. So this means you only pay us when a booked call shows up, when that person is a decision maker, when that person is in the industry you service, as well as they make enough money to work with you. Even if you just want a little insight, I'm more than free for a 30-minute call. You could check it out on our website. Link will be in the description as well in the document, whatever works for you. And yeah, we could start getting you results all on a paid qualified call basis. I just want to thank everybody for watching this video. If you have any comments, please feel free to leave them down below, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Have a good one.